I create anything, if I create a launch, if I create a webinar, if I just write a sales letter or construct an email that leads to a sale, anything that I do is in a sequence, a very particular psychological sequence that ultimately leads to a sale, right? And that sequence can be pretty long or it can be pretty short, but I'm doing things in there. It's like first I may have to hook to get attention. So, all right, now that I've hooked to get attention, now I have to build trust, and now I have to build authority, and now I have to move to the next sequence, which maybe I may have to start future pacing. I may have to start trial closing. I may have to start build authority again. I may have to apply proof. There's so many elements, and then there's a particular order that I want, a journey that I want to take a prospective client down. So that it ultimately, by the time that we get to the part of the sale, that they are basically begging for me to sell them something rather than me, crossing my fingers and hoping that when I make the offer that they'll be interested in it, right?
Hello, Launch family. So excited to have you listening to today's episode. And our conversation topic today is really about how to sell stuff right now in the online world of the summer of 2023. And as usual, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, folks.
And we have a very absolutely awesome guest today. He's a member of Jeff's Platinum Plus Mastermind group and an expert at conversions, webinars, launches, and all things digital marketing, Mr. Dylan Frost.
Ahoy, mateys.
Welcome to the show. Excited to talk today. So I thought it would be interesting to start off with just maybe introducing a little bit more about what you do, Dylan, and who you are, and even just like how you two, I think, go back a little ways in terms of doing this online business thing.
Sure, I can just give like a quick rundown, my intro here. So I kind of on both sides of the fence, and I can't even keep up with the numbers anymore. They're always changing anyway, so who even knows? But I've sold physical products and a lot of digital products, consulting and services and that sort of thing as well. For physical products, I've sold about $40 million worth of physical products in the last 8 years or so. And in that same time period, sold about $25 to $30 million in digital products, online courses, programs, and stuff like that. Starting from absolute zero, going from working IT at a community college to selling physical products and launching digital products. It was almost like an overnight experience, and it was about a 14-month process going from working a full-time job to making my first million, doing this, living this launch life. And so yeah, that's just like the quick short catch up about me and why I may or may not know anything and have the credentials to be on here right now.
And I'm just going to jump in and say, for whatever credibility I have, if you're listening, I assume you might know a little bit about me and my background, but I've been in this game for a long time, and what Dylan has done is just one of those stories that I find so inspiring, to just go from being the guy repairing printers at the community college to starting a business, selling on Amazon, and then coming into this world of selling courses. What was that? The first launch was more than six figures, wasn't it, Dylan?
Yeah. Very first launch I ever did. Yeah, it was like 140,000, something like that.
Yeah, starting with no list, no product, no offer, no website, because you had been just selling on Amazon, and just ridiculous, absolutely amazing. And that was just the first step, and he's gone on and $1 million launch after $1 million launch. And the reason I know all this is because Dylan is in my mastermind group, and in a room of brilliance and amazing marketers, Dylan has a way of just cutting right to the quick when it comes to figuring out conversions and offers, and that's why I asked him to be here. So it's going to be fun.
This will be. I'm excited about this conversation. So I'm curious, what are the things you are both really noticing right now in the industry as far as like trends and, the state of it? Because just based on what I'm hearing, it's like there's just more competition. There's higher ad costs. Artificial intelligence has that. Like, there's a lot of ways this could go in our conversation. But I'm curious, what are the things you're noticing in the industry right now, and how do you think about the trends that happen as you go through, building out your offers and conversions?
I'll jump in and say that what I'm noticing is the cyclical nature of what works and what doesn't, and I think it has to do. And you may disagree with this a little bit, Jeff, but I think it has a little bit to do with exposure and like overexposure and saturation of certain tactics, which lead to the opposite kind of tactic working sometimes, or a different tactic. So I can give you some like little things that I've seen, at least in the stuff that we do, right? And so there was, if we go back a number of years, there was a period of time where video hosting was getting cheaper, and recording video was getting easier and easier to do, and more people were using video in a lot of different ways to capture leads, or on their squeeze pages or registration pages, and opt-in pages and stuff like that. And a lot of people were seeing a super increased conversion by adding video to pages like that at the lead capture point. And but I'm actually personally, over the last year and a half or so, we've seen a transition away from that, just having short, succinct, but really hard hitting and really good copy is just outperforming video at that level, to get opt-ins and to lead into opt-ins. So like that's something that I've seen where just like the things have changed. It used to be like you got to have video on the front end of your funnel or on the front end, now it's if we actually significantly outperform video with just text in that spot. And maybe that's always just been true for you. Maybe text has always outperformed video for you, Jeff. But we're seeing text way outperform video these days on the front end of funnels.
So I usually think, well, video versus text on an opt-in. I usually think video does tend to suppress response on opt-in. When you test it all the way through the sale, it's a little different. And of course, that requires testing it all the way through the sale. I do know in our last big campaign, we tested a short form opt-in versus a long form opt-in, and the long form won, which is different than I've ever seen in my testing in the past. It used to be like I tested having the text below the fold on an opt-in page made zero difference. In our last big campaign, it helped quite a bit. So I do think absolutely the market's changing. One of the people in my other mastermind, the one you're not in, Dylan, I've got two mastermind groups, he said that he's like everyone, the sophistication of the market has really evolved, I think, of all markets. And he said something like, he's like, if my mother knows she's in a funnel, then everyone knows you're in a funnel. And I was talking to her the other day, and she's like, I signed up for something, and I'm sure they're giving me some free stuff, but I'm sure they're going to try to sell me something. He's like, if my mother knows she's in a funnel, everyone knows they're in a funnel. And so the market has gotten more sophisticated. I just saw an ad by my dear friend Frank Kern, and it started off with, "Hi, I'm Frank Kern, and this is an ad." So this is my Insta feed. And then he went on to talk for 5 minutes, telling him why it's an ad, and on and on. I don't know if the ad's performing well or not, but I do know Frank's usually pretty astute in seeing the trends. And so I think greater transparency in your marketing is a thing. I think that's been a gradual evolution since I went online 25 or 28 years ago, that there's been a continued evolution towards more transparency. I know, like Dylan, I know in your marketing, in your webinars, you are 100% on the nose and 100% transparent about like what you're doing and how you're speaking, and the way you do your bonuses and your offers. You disclose, basically you're disclosing everything. There's no what's the man behind the curtain in Wizard of Oz. It's not like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I think that's just the market we're in. So there's a lot more sophistication happening.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Like I've been feeling that way for a little while now. That as the market gets more sophisticated, that tactics like you talked about with Frank are working better and better. And I typically want to say how I feel about that kind of copy, those kind of copy angles where you're being like super upfront that hey, I'm going to sell you something later. That's kind of like a high level like pro level tactic to be able to use. So you got to get the copy just right. But I think it's more effective than ever if you do get it right. If you can really focus in and get really good copy around that, it's a really strong time that to really early on when you're engaging that audience, no matter if it's an ad or any other kind of way, if you're letting them know either in a subtle way or in a more direct way that like yeah I do have paid things that you can be buying and maybe even they're kind of expensive or whatever it is. I think that that helps you in this world because more and more people have are able to be exposed. Here's kind of something that I'd like to get your take on, and kind of the way the market has changed. In 2010 or 2012 even, right, the amount of offers or the amount of advertising you could be exposed to in that day and age was about 1/30th of the amount of things that you can be exposed to now with the explosion of social media and the explosion of online advertising, right? And so because people are seeing so much more advertising and seeing so many more offers and are have so much more experience going through what we would all call marketing, online marketing or marketing funnels, now you have to start thinking about that in your copy and in your strategy development. You have to think, okay, like my audience is, as you're writing, they're going to be they're going to have seen some of these tactics before. Not necessarily is it going to be the first time they've ever been exposed to them. So it's like, all right, so you have to get in their mind, and if I have seen this tactic before, how can I put it on its head? How can I create a pattern interrupt? And I think and that's something I'd love to talk about a little bit, is if you can understand like what a pattern interrupt is and how to do it effectively, you pretty much have a license to nearly print money. At least you have a license to gain attention. Whether you can turn that into money or not depends on your some of your other abilities to be able to put together good marketing and offer creation and stuff. But I think pattern interrupt right now is really huge and important.
100% agree. I mean, it's like when I'm looking at my Insta feed, and obviously every other thing is an ad, and every single one of them, for me in my feed, is someone telling me how I can build an online business.
Yeah.
And I literally can't remember. Well, no, I saw the one by Frank. So like, I mean, I've been in this business for a long time. I used to know all the players, but now, like, I'll go weeks before I see someone that I actually know. It's what I call the pop-up gurus. It's like everyone who's got a phone is suddenly an internet marketing guru, which is awesome, but yeah, to be able to stand out from that, yeah, I'd love to talk pattern interrupts. Before we go there, one of the things I was thinking about was, like, if you are going to do the thing that's super upfront, I'm going to sell you something. To me, like, the key is it is it's a subtle thing. You have to, like, you have to, a thin line you have to walk to be able to make something like that work. And I think a big part of that is creating alignment, like saying, yes, we're on two sides of this potential transaction. So we, in some ways, have different interests, but you have to show the line, you have to show the path of how you have aligned interests. And I think that's part of that path, like why there's congruence between, even though I'm going to try to sell you something and you want to keep your money in your wallet, why you should be paying attention to me, and why I'm going to share this with you, and why we are actually in alignment.
Yeah, I always call that you have to give a good reason. You have to have good reasons. Is how I would just like succinctly explain it.
Yeah, and so you just said, I took 3 minutes to say what you just said in 2 words. Like, give a reason. Give a reason. Right. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things you mentioned right off the top, Dylan, is that there's such a saturation of, say, tactics right now in the market. So people, and combined with that, people are more sophisticated since they're seeing all these tactics all the time, all the time. And so, is there, like, when we talk about these things called pattern interrupts, right? There is a way of, say, playing against that market where you're just upfront about, what you're doing, or what you just said about Frank Kern, so that it kind of cuts through, versus people who are saying, like, oh, this free webinar is going to be giving you all this value, and like, it's of course going to be a sales pitch, right? Like, we all know it's going to wind up being something where they offer something. So are there ways now that when you're filming your ads, or when you're putting together the content that's going to go out to people at that first point of contact, that you're now thinking through, like, how do you cut through the noise? Like, what are these pattern interrupts that might work nowadays versus in the past?
Yeah, I can tell a story. I can tell a few stories about this that kind of like get people's minds thinking about pattern interrupt and understanding a little bit what we're talking about. So, pattern interrupt is a definition for anyone that's listening that doesn't know. It's basically just you get in a routine in what you are viewing and seeing, and something that is different or unique can really stand out and grab your attention. And attention is really what you're trying to accomplish with an ad, because they're viewing their feed for whatever platform that they're on. And even if it's just email, even if it's just their email inbox, right, they're viewing that. And it's your subject line or your ad needs to actually draw that attention away from the other stuff that they were trying to look at or wanting to look at. Few people open up Facebook or open up Instagram or open up their email looking for ads. Like, I wonder what interesting ad is on here today. It has to get their attention away from what they were trying to do or wanting to do, or it has to look like the content that they went to the platform for, is something to think about as well, from the opposite angle of that, to try to blend in. You can try to pattern interrupt, or you can try to blend in, not with ads, but try to blend in with the content that they're searching for, or what they're using that platform for in the first place, right? So I do think both of those angles work really well. But here's a story about one of the biggest pattern interrupt shifts that completely changed the online marketing world significantly that I can think of. And a lot of people listening probably remember this when it happened. I can't remember the year exactly. I think it was around 2016 that it occurred. But there was a guy named Ty Lopez who made a YouTube ad that everyone basically in the world saw, where he's just saying, "I'm just here in my garage." And it's the worst quality video ever. He's just like holding a phone up, and there's like Lamborghinis behind him in a garage. I'm here in my garage in my house in in Beverly Hills or something like that, or the Hollywood Hills. And he's like, yeah, but what's way more valuable to me than these cars, or whatever. And then he turns, and it's these books, and there's just like a bookshelf that he has in his garage for some reason, but he's just got all these books in his garage. And it's like a 25-minute, or maybe it's longer, I can't remember. Maybe it's like a 40-minute ad. It's incredibly long form, and it's just him walking around holding a phone, talking in a like unedited, in this very rough, very long form advertisement. So there are two things about it that were completely revolutionary and different than anything that anyone else had ever done or was doing with social media advertising, and significantly influenced advertising, I think, for years and years going forward. It was one, the first pattern interrupt that he really made was the quality of the video and the style of the video. At that time, everyone was trying to have really like high quality, buttoned up, in some cases even more like corporate style advertising, I would say. And that would ads that would pop up in your feed, right? Higher production value, right? So his was literally just the lowest possible, intentionally was the lowest possible production value to make it feel as authentic as possible. Okay, and to make it not feel like an ad, because people can basically, I think what I had identified was people subconsciously are able to identify what it is an advertisement based on the way that it looks when they're scrolling through a feed, so that they can ignore it. And so what he did was created an ad that looked and felt like so the type of video that your cousin would record and post on Facebook that would so that it would be more attention grabbing and interesting, but also feel more authentic, less like this big corporate overly produced advertisement. And so that was one thing, and so everyone started copying that immediately after. Everyone, every ad that happened for the next several years was someone holding a shaky phone in their hand recording an ad. Okay, so that had a huge influence. And I talked earlier about the cyclical nature of these things. Like that can now shift. That can oversaturate. Everyone can copy what worked so well for Ty Lopez because he was able to scale that ad into the tens of million, like, if not hundreds of millions of views very, very profitably because it worked so successfully. And then everyone copied him, and then so all ads eventually became low quality, super rough, low production value style ads, and which can create another market shift. And if you can be ahead on those market shifts and just be thinking about them in this kind of way, you can always kind of be a little bit ahead of the curve. And there just has to be some research that you do of like seeing what's going on, what does the landscape look like, what does your ad feed look like, which is great too because the algorithms, if you are doing nothing but like engaging with those kinds of ads, that's all you'll get. So you'll get to really, really see tons of them to be able to analyze data and stuff. And another thing that his ad did that was unique at the time is it was long form. It was a really, really long ad when everyone else at the time was convinced that you had to be your ads had to be the same length as like a commercial on TV. It used to 28 seconds, or you had to be something really fast and hard hitting and get to the point. And he made this 20 something minute ad, and it absolutely crushed. And so I love to think back to uh, that huge moment in online marketing, and how there are so many other moments like that, and what the lessons of that can teach us and show us. And many of those things are happening right now as well. So sorry, that was a long tangent and rant, but I like sharing that little
Oh, I
anecdote there.
remember that ad. I saw it. I remember when
Sure.
that came out. Like it just was everywhere, and I think that there was this subtlety to it that it wasn't telling you it was an advertisement. But it was kind of like subtly hinting at, I have all this success. I have all these other things. Like it was never showing you like, check out my Ferrari. It was just like in the background. And so by not pointing at something, he was pointing at something, and it was flipping the whole script on its head, which was interesting. Yeah. Say what you about ads. That one was effective.
Right. I
Yeah.
always wondered how he could hold the phone for that long.
Yeah.
That was the thing. I'm like, because I think it was just one shot. I don't think there were any cuts. And it's
Yeah.
like, how could he hold the phone for 20 minutes without like his arm falling up? It's like,
Well, maybe that
Yeah.
was the test. It was just like, I'm just going to record an ad as long as I can
Right.
and
Till my
see what
arm's too
happens.
tired.
Right. Like that. So what about, okay, so if we're talking about pattern interrupts, right, and you're going to get like, I think the way I'm looking at it is like, it's filters, right? People are going through with their filters up, and you mentioned that people could blend in, right? So you kind of somehow get through the filter, or you pattern interrupt, which is almost like breaking the filter, right? Like, can you actually break the filter in some way? So this is where, when I think about it, this is where it goes back to what you were saying, Jeff, around alignment, right? Because if you're gonna blend in, right, you have to sort of have that alignment lined up so that it doesn't feel like a bait and switch in some way, right? I mean,
yep,
because
yep.
that's a risk, isn't it? When you're like, oh, I'm going to blend in with, like, for example, using a meme or finding a way to utilize a meme in some way to get me to look at your ad. Oh, it's a meme I recognize. What is this? Let me dig in a little more. Can you speak more about the alignment issue and how you even think about that, or
Well,
how does that work?
yeah, one of the ways I think about it, like, so our mutual friend, Susan Garrett, who has she's an amazing dog trainer, specifically within dog agility, but in all areas of dog training. And she has an incredible business. She's in the mastermind with us. And she's an incredible business teaching, has online courses, online training about dog training. And so she also happens to be a fantastic marketer because, well, she's in our world, in my world, in our mastermind. And she could easily be accused by dog people, and dog people, they just want to see cool videos about dogs and learn about how to be better with their dog and train their dog. And some people could look at her going through the launch process and the way she structures the offer and everything and say, oh, you're just a marketer. But the thing is Susan, she is in her business because she wants to make all dogs' lives better. The dogs' lives and dog owners' lives, she wants them better. And when she shares that, when she's sharing how that's why she's in business, that's her mission, then what dog owner doesn't want to get behind that? They want their lives to be better, their dogs' lives to be better. But hearing about this mission of making all dogs' lives better is even more awesome. So, like, if you can share that type of thing, it's like, for me, I'm going to share, I've been in this business a long time. I've helped a lot of people start and grow their online businesses. And I'm doing it because I think entrepreneurs are the future of all humanity. They're the ones that are making a difference in the world. And, yes, this is a business for me and I need to make sales, but I'm here to serve you and make your life better and give you a life of freedom. I'm trying to align myself with their wants, their needs, their desires. And I think, if you're leading a business of service, then it's generally that's the path you want to, that's an easy path to alignment with your prospects.
So you have to have your mission in mind, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, Dylan, what do you think? Because, yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'm the most qualified to speak to that
Well,
necessarily,
that's why I'm asking you.
but I can say that when it comes to like an evergreen thing, what I feel like is a tactic or strategy that allows you to at least pivot into the stuff that you're talking about, or you can even lead with that. I think what's really important is, and I speak till I'm red in the face about this to people, anyone that'll listen. It's if you can get really good at writing subject lines, hooks, headlines, that sort of thing. Like those are the biggest things that can draw attention. And then once you have grabbed the attention in that first quick single sentence, 6 seconds, whatever it is, you can almost say whatever you want from there. And if you have a really good way to pivot into that alignment talk, I think that it's a beautiful transition in a way to you have to grab attention and then holding it with that sort of stuff. And so I've always had really good success. I've had a few ads that I've not written a whole lot of ads in the last 8 years, and that's because I haven't had to, because I've not written very many, but the ones that I have written work, and they keep working, and they work over and over again, and maybe you can just make small changes to them, and it's because I think that they follow a pretty strong evergreen process. No matter what's kind of working in the marketplace, it's always about being able to grab attention. And so my ads, what something that I would recommend a lot of people look into, and a tactic that I think a lot of people could use, is to put text in your ads as the best that you can. So I have used a really simple format where it's literally just the bar, like it's in the portrait orientation, like not landscape, but the portrait orientation, with the black bar above and the black bar below, so that I can put a headline basically in those black bars, so that as people are scrolling through, they're not just seeing a picture of me talking, because I'm not particularly eye catching. Okay, so that's not great. And so I don't need any kind of visual pattern interrupt. My pattern interrupt can just be what the headline that I've written is, and if that headline is interesting enough, or engaging enough, or even controversial enough, I'm going to get people to stop and then start reading and start listening to me. And that's when I can get in. Once I've accomplished that, that's when I can get into the alignment talk. That's when I can get into us versus them messaging. That's when I can get into all those things that they'll start to listen for, start to connect with you on, and that's when you can start moving to the next levels and the next levels of different psychological triggers or movement into your funnel. Yeah, I don't know if that made any sense or not.
It,
Well,
it,
yeah.
and I can't actually. And Dylan, while you're talking, I thought of a way that you use alignment. Um, so like Dylan's really amazing at webinars, like amazing at webinars. And so one of the tricks for webinars is to get people to consume them, and ideally to consume them live, because Dylan does his the webinars that Dylan's done, that I'm familiar with at least, he's done actual live. They're not a recorded thing. They're all live. And so you want your people to show up live. And so what Dylan does is he says, you have to show up live. Yes, there will be a recording, but I'm going to cut out a chunk of that will only be there for your if you're live. And so, the question people have is like, why don't you just give me the whole recording? And so the answer is, well, live is live, and the people that show up live have historically gotten better results. So that's why I'm going to give you an incentive to be live. So there's a very transparent way of creating alignment, because I want you live because it's going to be better for me, and it's also going to be better for you. So I'm going to give you this incentive to show up live.
Yeah, and that's a key part of it too. It's going to be better for you. So as long as in your copy you can communicate why. There's a lot of ways you can communicate it, right? You can communicate it in way like people that show up live get better results. People that show up live, and I can demonstrate that in the statistics of my own programs and stuff. Like the people that actually show up and are more engaged have X% better results in the program, right? And so you can and because of that, I'm gonna uh, reward the people that do show up live because they're the people that are most likely to succeed. And there's so many different angles that you can continue to help people uh, and create that alignment in that sort of way, but also in like make them want to show up live because you've made them feel special if they do. And make them feel heard or seen in certain ways that significantly increases their results and yours simultaneously.
So you're saying webinars still work to actually
Ha!
sell stuff? Is that what you're saying? Because I don't know. Like, there's a lot of people out there who are obsessed around the idea of, okay, everything's short form video content now. You can't keep anyone's attention for very long, right? And I know the answer to this is probably not that webinars don't work, but like, what are you doing? Because we've talked about getting the attention with the pattern interrupt or the blending. Like, that's now the attraction of it, but then you kind of washed over a little bit of like, oh, and then you just kind of keep their attention with it. And like, because getting people to sit down and watch your stuff or stay engaged throughout that with all the competition and all the other things that could be happening, how, well, tell me, like, how do we do that with, say, just a webinar if we want to ground it in that example?
Yeah, and I can zoom out a little bit. I have I'm hoping I can get all this explained properly in a short period of time here, but I have like a fundamental belief about how to make a sale, um, and the way that like the most effective way for you to make a sale is for you to have a really good structure for the information that you're trying to communicate that leads to a sale, and then the second part of that is for someone to sit through it and experience it all in the order that you intended that leads to the sale, right? So if I create anything, if I create a launch, if I create a webinar, if I just write a sales letter or construct an email that leads to a sale, anything that I do is in a sequence, a very particular psychological sequence that ultimately leads to a sale, right? And that sequence can be pretty long or it can be pretty short, but I'm doing things in there. It's like first I may have to hook to get attention. So all right, now that I've hooked to get attention, now I have to build trust, and now I have to build authority, and now I have to move to the next sequence, which maybe I may have to start future pacing. I may have to start trial closing. I may have to start. I have to build authority again. I may have to apply proof. There's so many elements, and then there's a particular order that I want, a journey that I want to take a prospective client down, so that it ultimately, by the time that we get to the part of the sale, that they are basically begging for me to sell them something rather than me, crossing my fingers and hoping that when I make the offer that they'll be interested in it, right? Now, but the thing about that is, so you have to have a good sequence, and that's the great thing about product launch formula, is it gives you that the mystery and is kind of solved for you when it comes to that sequence. So the second part of that is once you have a great sequence, like literally, like I originally learned from product launch formula. That's how I learned how to do these sequences and these psychological triggers many years ago. But once you have that sequence down, the next thing is that I feel really, really strongly about is for it to be effective, or for it to be as effective as possible, is for you to be able to control the experience of that user or of that viewer, so that they see it all and they see it in the order that you intended to the best of your ability, right? So like what's the a way that I can explain what that means and what it is in a way that makes a lot of sense, right? So if a huge mistake that I see a lot of people do with a webinar replay that's made is they leave the play controls on. And why is that a problem? Why is the ability for people to move forward and backwards, fast forward or rewind through a webinar, why is that bad? Because you would be thinking yourself, you may be thinking like, well, but what if someone said something and I wanted to back up, like, like I would want to be able to do that. Other people would want to do that. They may just get annoyed that they can't move forward or skip behind. Like, why is that incredibly important that you turn off the controls for replay so people can't skip ahead or skip backwards? And it's a really, really simple reason. Yes, it may annoy people. Actually, it doesn't. Not there's not may. It does annoy people that they can't skip forward or backward. But it doesn't matter, because what will absolutely tank your sales on your webinar replay is if people are 10 minutes into it and they're just like, I want to skip ahead and see if there's an offer and see what it costs. Because the moment that they do that, you were completely ruined. 99.9% of the time, you completely ruined your chance to close that client. Because if they know what your price is or they know what your offer is before they experienced you setting it up and providing the massive value for it, they spend the whole if they even decide to continue watching, that may just be the point where they decide to turn it off. If they even decide to continue watching at all, they're just going to spend the rest of the time trying to justify that price. And it's a different mindset than when you are able to control that process that they're going through, and you're able to set it up, and you're able, instead of them justifying the price, you're able to justify the price to them. And it's a completely different dichotomy. And so like there are things like that if you enable the ability for people to skip too far ahead in the process, or to ruin certain reveals, or to not experience it the way that it was intended to be experienced, siloed, then you ruin it. And so I'm really, really, really invested in, when I'm creating a funnel or I'm creating any kind of sales sequence, that I want people to be able to go through it in the order I intended, as I intended it, right? And that's the great thing about live webinars, is there's no choice. You can't skip ahead, you can't skip back, you have to just sit and watch. And you have to experience the whole thing with me, and and if you sat on the webinar start to finish, you saw everything I had to say in the order that I had to say it. So by the time I get to the offer, it's way higher likely to convert. And I try to recreate that experience in my replays, so that way, if you're going to watch this, the only way you're going to be able to watch it is if it's how I intended for you to experience it, which is like it was a webinar, basically, that was live, or you can't, if a live webinar, you can't go back, you can't go forward. Same thing on the replay. I want it to be a consistent experience in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, this resonates back to when I was doing sales training for people, and I was teaching people how to do appointments and sell stuff. The biggest thing is people always ask, oh, how much is this, or how much is this? And if they're asking that, that's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. These are some of your probably best candidates for buying, if they're wondering what is the price of this going to be, and because it means they're interested. You have got their interest in this early. But if they find out the price before they understand the value, you could be cannibalizing your very best prospects early on. And I think that's such a huge thing, being able to control the experience of that price reveal in a way that really empowers them to make a strong decision for themselves at that moment, to make the best decision for themselves at that moment, right? Um, what are some other ways you control that experience other than just saying being able to move the like, okay, you can't hit play or pause or whatever? Like, are there other ways that you were able to control that experience throughout a webinar or throughout anything online like this?
Yeah, another way that I do it is a common mistake. So it's funny because you had said, um, do webinars still work? And it's like, well, they've always worked. My opinion is just a lot of people do them wrong, or aren't using the medium correctly, or aren't performing them correctly, right? And so like another huge mistake that I see people make, in my opinion, is they'll so like think about the sequence of a webinar, right? There'll be the registration period before it starts. There'll be the day of the live webinar itself, and then there'll be the replay sequence where the replay is available, right? So it should be really, really simple. I hope everyone understands that the replay needs to only be available for a limited time, right? It shouldn't be there forever. It shouldn't be exist forever, right? So it's only there for a limited time, and then it's going away. But the copy in the replay sequence should not reveal an offer, in my opinion. Now, I can change my mind in different situations and things like that, but my replay sequences generally either don't say that there's something for sale, or it's just very, very subtle, and then if I do it, it's just like literally on the last day that thing is of cart open, that something is for sale. So think about it this way: after my live webinar it will reveal an offer, and then cart will open on that offer, right? So the thing that most people will do like the next day is they will send out the replay and basically say like, hey, here's my webinar replay, and also guess what, my course is for sale now, and here's a link to the sales page or whatever. And it's like that's bad for a few reasons. Like one, or like one, if you do it that way, you have two links in your email, and two links in your email is always bad. There should never be more than just one link where you can go one place in an email. And then two, or let's say you didn't make that mistake, and there's only one link, and it goes to your replay, and you have your replay page, and right under it is a button that's like to your sales page, right? And it's like it's the same thing. You're putting the cart before the horse kind of deal, and you're not making you're kind of blowing your opportunity with people. So I don't, even in my replay sequences, I don't reveal that anything's for sale. I don't reveal that anything is open cart. All my replay sequence is trying to do is try to create consumption of that replay. And I try to drive consumption of that replay by using, again, really good hooks about why they should view it, what's interesting in there, what value they're going to get out of watching it, and by driving the scarcity of the fact that it's limited time, and that replay is going to go away, and they're going to miss those secrets, those limited time secrets that's available in that free replay that they can watch. So I don't just like go from register for my webinar, live webinar, and then just go into sales. I just go into, I don't need to do sales in my replays, in my replay email sequence. I don't need to. That's what the webinar is for. And it no matter what you think about your copywriting ability, if like your copywriting ability is not going to be as good to generate a sale in an email as it would if the people just watched the replay of your webinar. So don't worry about making sales in your emails. Just get people to watch that replay. It will get the sale for you if it's good. And so that's a huge mistake that I see people make, in my opinion. Not saying that there aren't times where you do it differently, but that's the strategy that I most often and most commonly use in my email sequencing and what I'm trying to do. It's all about just consume the webinar.
I'm hearing so much of the trust that you have in your sales journey as well. So that like once you have people starting to consume that webinar or that replay, you know that it's going to bring them through towards where you want them to be. When you're making that offer. And so there's an immense amount of confidence and trust that you're placing in your webinar to deliver on that. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about how you have that trust and how you have that confidence, because a lot of people who are probably new or haven't done as many webinars as you would be wondering, well, okay, I can eliminate all that stuff that you're talking about. I don't want to bring this up, but I'm worried that I'm just going to lose them in the content maybe.
Um, sure. Well, it's been years of practice and years of exposure to other people's content and seeing it and making adjustments and stuff like that. I can tell you how extreme this gets. In my replay sequence, I don't nowhere is there a button that you can click to buy or to go to a sales page or an order form on my replays pages. Nowhere. So it's like, well, how do people buy then? It's like, well, because in the slides of the presentation itself, I'll give a simple URL that people that can go to buy, and so you can't even. There's no button to even buy. I don't even do timers for buttons.
You're not popping a button.
You're not popping a
button. I'm not even popping up a button. It's literally you have to watch to the point where in the slides at the bottom of the slide or whatever will just be the URL you go to be able to buy. So it's like you can't even do it if you wanted to unless you consume the content. That's how strict I am about creating that sequence, right? And it works. I found it works. It works well, and it's one of those things where like it's like it just no brainer kind of works. It's one of those things where like.
What about on closing day? Do you?
So I am.
You must pop a button on closing day. I mean.
I don't a lot. I only do in certain on certain situations will I include one on the day of close or whatever but it's only if I feel and it's one of those things where like if you're able to track in your funnel, if you have good tracking and if you're able to know. You can customize it, right? There's different ways and different levels of sophistication in your launch, right? If I know they have consumed, like, and already watched, so that's important to mention, right? So if you have the sophistication level in your funnel, and you don't have to, I don't want people to think like, oh, I need to be super sophisticated like this. No, you don't. You can just do what I said and not put a button, and you'll be fine. You can increase your conversion a little bit by having the sophistication where if you know that user had watched either to a certain point in the replay or they had watched the entire replay and then didn't purchase, you can start sending them emails. They can get different emails than the other people in the sequence in the campaign that are sales oriented, sales focused, and lead to a sales page and stuff like that, right? If you're able to do the sophistication in your marketing like that, that's great because you already know they've been exposed to the content and the offer, so it's okay to have more full court press sales oriented emails that are going to that prospect. If you aren't doing tracking like that, then I just stay more general, and it's all about consuming the content. And so yeah, Jeff, like on a lot of promotions, I won't even put the button on the last day. I may, and sometimes I'll only throw the button up in the last like 6 or 8 hours. Like it'll just be just for the people that
Right.
are just like had forgotten what it was or what was it, that sort of thing, just to reduce friction from customer service aspect of it. But yeah. And also what that does for you too that a lot of people don't realize is also that strategy reduces the saturation of your offer. So fewer people get exposed to it and fewer people are aware of it. And it's harder for anyone to know what your price is or what your offer is. And by reducing that saturation of your offer, you increase the likelihood that you can convert a lead later. Because that problem that I gave you earlier of if your controls are enabled on your replay and someone skips to the price, not only do they know that right now, but they're going to remember it 6 months from now if you remarket them. And so if they were someone who watched 10 or 20 minutes without knowing the price and clicked off, that the likelihood of you being able to convert that lead is way higher than the person that saw the price and clicked off. So it also enables you for your leads to be able to stay to be remarketed more easily in the future as well when you're not oversaturating them with exposure to your offer. So I'm absolutely okay with people not ever seeing my sales page or not being able to click it and not getting exposed to it because it enables me to, I believe, be able to remarket them better in the future too.
That makes sense. It absolutely makes sense.
You mentioned early on in this conversation that you don't really want to put out an offer before they're ready, and for you that means that they are like excited and like almost begging you for an offer of some sort at this point, right? Or excited to get that versus, putting it out there and saying, "Are you interested in this?" I'd love to know, and I'm sure many listeners would love to know a little bit more about how do you create that kind of response for people on a webinar where they're,
Yes. So a webinar is usually, and the way that I do it, uh, I say it's as long as it needs to be, and that can vary, right? It may need to be really long, it may need to be really short. It just kind of depends. But the way that my style and the way I do it, I find most of my content and offer before we get into the Q&A section, which is a completely different bear, and I don't even know if we have time to talk about that whole sequence and everything, right? But I'm usually done with my content and offer before, not including the Q&A section, somewhere between an hour and a half, most commonly. That so 60 minutes to 90 minutes is where that typically wraps up. So that's how much time I have to take someone from, in some cases, zero to making them an offer that can be as much as $3,500 in some cases with the offers that I'll do on webinars, right? So that's a big deal. You imagine sticking someone who's never seen you before or never heard you talk before, and you talk to them for 60 or 90 minutes, and then they're giving you $3,500. I do that all the time, and the sequence that I use is just still to this day, the foundation of it are the psychological triggers that I learned from Product Launch Formula all those years ago, like way back in 2015, when I went through Product Launch Formula and learned what psychological triggers are for the very first time. And it's just knowing what those are and knowing the order in which to do them. And if you do that right, and you have a good offer, an appealing offer, it just works. It'll always work. It'll work because it literally is just like science, in my opinion. Like, it is actual, just neurological science, and so it'll work. It'll always work if you do that.
Hey, Launch family, Chris coming at you. We'll get back to this high converting offer conversation with Dylan in just a minute. But first, as you know, we always put some of the best gold from our conversations in the Dare to Launch bonus vault. And with Dylan, we talked to him for another 20 minutes. And specifically, it was about the trend of high ticket offers in the market and how he and Jeff think about conversion when it comes to those kind of offers. We even touch on attracting clients you absolutely love and incorporating testimonials into your offers as well. I know you'll get a ton of value and you'll love it. So in order to access the bonus vault, go to daretolaunchshow.com/taco, enter your email, and you'll get access to another 20 minutes with Dylan and all the other bonus content and goodies that we have in the vault. That's daretolaunchshow.com/taco to get access to the bonus vault. Now let's get back to the show. It might be time for a taco break. 2-minute taco break here. So I have a few fun rapid fire taco related questions that we will do. So Dylan, if you're, and we do this with every episode, where we're going to start off with some basic taco questions and you can just kind of like answer them. And then we're going to get them a little steadily, a little bit more spicy as we go through them. Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. So, how about this? Are you a soft shell or a hard shell taco guy?
I think I'm probably more soft shell. Yeah.
All right. All right.
Still no crispy taco. Yeah, there
takers. All right. How
There's
about
no
this?
right or wrong answers, but hard shell is the wrong answer.
It definitely seems like there is. I don't know. All right.
I'll say this. I'll say this. I really like both at the same time with some refried beans in between. I'll say that.
You're talking Chris's language.
I've been saying that there is an answer, I think, for to bring these two groups together is you need to have the inside be the crispy taco and the outside be the soft taco, so that when it breaks, you don't lose any of your food. Anyway, that's the ideal taco. All right, are you a spicy or a mild taco person?
Well, I like spicy food to a point, and then once we reach that point, I really don't like it anymore. So it's you and what one restaurant or one person considers spicy is so different relative to another person. I find it uh, when I can't control the spice level myself, I find it better to go through life as a mild person, just so that I don't end up ordering something that I don't eat.
Less regrets as a mild person.
Yes,
All right.
exactly.
Shredded beef or shredded chicken?
Just probably shredded chicken for me, usually.
All right. Well, let's raise the spice level on these taco questions. And what about you, Jeff? Do you shredded beef or shredded chicken? I don't
I'm
think we've asked
all
you
of the
that one
above.
yet.
What I didn't hear is fish. I love fish tacos. So,
Fish tacos.
let's go fish.
All right. Would you rather have a taco that never runs out of filling or a taco that magically changes flavor every time you take a bite?
I would rather the flavor. That
Changes
seems
flavor.
changes flavor.
Yeah.
That would be. I'm one of these people that like. So my business partner Dan, he's fascinating experiment or case study to watch him eat. He eats if he's got like a 5 portions to his meal, he eats one of them completely before moving to the next one. So if he's got like mashed potatoes, he eats all the mashed potatoes before he'll
Eats in sec-
move to the next thing on his plate, right? And I'm the absolute inverse of this. I just take one bite of one thing, and I just kind of go through and or just will mix them all together, basically, right? This is kind
Mhm.
of how I'll do it. So I like being able to constantly change what each bite is and would be like that variety. That's how I am.
Yeah, that good answer. I'm in alignment with that. Yeah.
I kind of eat in sections. I don't know. I'll eat but I like things that are already made and mixed. So like
Uh
a
huh.
pasta or a taco that already has a bunch of stuff
Sure.
together
Yeah.
that's mixed. So, all right. Would you rather go on a taco tasting tour around the world or embark on a taco themed adventure to uncover a legendary taco recipe?
I'm going around the world. I'm going around the world.
I'm gonna do. Well, but what if it's like national treasure and getting that taco recipe is a journey around the world, right? So it's like I'm gonna get the best
Mhm.
of both there.
I
It
like the
depends
way
how
the thinking going.
dangerous. It would depend on how dangerous this quest is. Would you know? I've got people that depend on me, so I have to, with a high likelihood, have to return. But
All right. Well, there's no wrong answers in this one,
Indiana
but
Jones and the Temple of Tacos.
yeah, exactly.
I'd watch that. That'd be good.
It'd probably be better than the Indiana Jones movie that just came out. Ooh.
All right. If you could open up a taco themed pop up shop, all right, in any city in the world, what city would you pick and why?
Uh, London, Kentucky, because it's where I live, so that I would be able to get just a little bit more diversity in the food here because there's not a lot. I live in a very rural place, so sorry. I'm the worst for some of these kind of answers because I take like the most direct, like logical, rational approach instead of like the fun answer. Right? I'm always like I'm the loser that like is always trying to like game the genie. You know what I mean? Trying to figure out like how can I turn this into wishing for more wishes? And like that's not fun. That person's never fun to ask those hypothetical questions to because he's always trying to just like game the system. But yeah, I would just put it as close to me as possible.
like that answer. And I like that you're from London. That's my hometown, just a completely different London.
Oh yeah.
And it's not the big one though. It's London, Ontario. So there's
Yeah,
a
there you
lot. I
go.
didn't realize there were more smaller Londons out there in the world. So
There's tons. That's how I introduce myself with my accent and all that. So yeah, I'm from London, Kentucky, not England. Uh, you know.
what about you, Jeff? Do you have a place for your taco pop-up shop?
Let's go with Barcelona.
Why not, right? Just Barcelona.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. How about this one? This one's on theme for the episode. I have a $10,000 taco. How do you craft the offer for that? Or how do you sell it?
Well, I think you would have to sell it based on more of the experience than the taco itself. So I don't know that there's any. I'm sure that there are ingredients and things that you could do to make it close to that value in terms of a dollar amount for the taco itself, but you would have to create the experience in which that you consume that taco, where or who's there or under what pretense, most likely, or there has to be a, I wouldn't say like collectible value to it, but you would have to to hit into the same types of things that would make people want to plays into the psychology of where like someone would be willing to pay to be the only person who got to experience that, right? Like the whole idea of think about it like from going to space or something like that, right? There's so few people with that ability to do that. Someone will want to do it just so they can be one of the few that said they did, right? So if you could do it like that.
Yeah, I think like a $10,000 taco, if it was come to Durango, Colorado, and sit at the table at the secret headquarters, and Dylan and Jeff are going to sit there with you and plan out your offer and your marketing sequence and your either webinar or launch, I bet you we could sell that one. So that would be, like Dylan said, the experience. And that evening we're going to make tacos, and so that's your $10,000 taco. I think you could do that's one way.
That would be a deal. That would be a hell of a deal. 10 grand for that. That's you're selling it short there. That's a
no. Okay, well I'd say it'd have to be like
maybe $1 million.
Yeah. We'd have to have like maybe 12 people around the table with us to do it. We could have some fun with that, I think.
We got the $10,000 podcast taco offer.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Either that or just you have an incredible bonus package, and then because like I mean, seriously, it's like the Sports Illustrated. It's like get the Sports Illustrated subscription and you get your football phone or whatever. When you make an offer, you can make an offer where you're really selling the bonus stack more than the offer. So.
Yeah. Well, it's like it comes with bonus tacos for the rest of your life. So you only have to buy the first taco for 10 grand, but all the rest of the tacos for the rest of your life are included.
That's it. There you go.
There you go.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I think that was perfect. So now we'll just wrap things up. Let's get into any final thoughts on today's topic around how to sell stuff right now online in the summer of 2023.
We said a lot of things. I said a lot of things, and just like any conversation with me, it ends up going all kinds of different directions because I can't. I need probably to be put on medication to focus more, but I refuse it. So here we are. You get what you get. But I would say like if you walk away, if I wanted someone to walk away with remembering one thing, it's about. I think one of the most important parts about making a sale is for you being able to control the experience and getting someone to that experience being someone to uninterrupted go through your entire sales process and journey before leading to your offer, making them experience everything and all the steps and that sequence as you intended it, so they heard everything, saw everything, and know everything that they would be buying before they're exposed to the offer.
I would just echo that. I mean, first of all, sweat your offer, put together a great offer, study offers, Study who you're selling to so you can create a great offer that's going to change their life. And then, like Dylan said, I mean, the way that Dylan controls the consumption of the marketing is brilliant, and it very much parallels, he's doing it now more in webinars, but it's just, that's what a launch was designed to do, was that, when you go to buy a Mercedes or a Porsche and you show up on the lot, the first thing the salesperson doesn't do, they don't tell you what the price is immediately. They're going to bring you into the experience before they reveal the price. The revelation of price is a huge deal. And the revelation of the offer is a huge deal. And so to the extent that you can, you want to control the consumption so that people are ready for that offer when you make it, which is exactly what Dylan just said.
Well, thank you so much, Dylan, for coming on the podcast today. And if people want to find more from you or hear more from you, where can they do that?
They can go to thewholesaleformula.com, I guess, if they're interested. That's I appear there.
All right, awesome. Well, we hope this conversation has inspired you and makes you dare to launch. On the next episode of Dare to Launch.
So I've spent a big portion of my life getting good at marketing and selling online. And I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of launches and coached hundreds and hundreds of people. And what I know is that a few things. First of all, the biggest thing holding people back is the blank page, is not knowing where to start. And so Launchy and frankly any AI these days is just it's the greatest answer ever to the blank page. It's just amazing at that. It's about getting you moving forward. It's about being a brainstorming partner. The other thing I know is that it's when we are working on our own business, we all become blind for some reason. Like we can look at someone else's business and know instantly what they need to do, instantly why that offer isn't going to be appealing to their potential clients. But then we look at our own stuff and we become blind. Almost everyone does this. It's really hard to step out of your own head and be objective about your stuff. Well, Launchy is the answer to that as well.